ADJ topic, which is indications of root canal treatment following all the kinds of traumatic dental injuries in the permanent teeth. We are only focusing on the permanent teeth here, and we'll also be talking about immature teeth as well as the mature teeth. But primary teeth we are not discussing, but you have covered the primary teeth guidelines and you've covered the permanent teeth guidelines. The both primary as well as permanent guidelines and traumatic injuries you've covered with me. And you have it under the app and under the program and under the course, right? But why did this article and why this topic separately? So I know you have been memorizing and you have been given, the traumatic guidelines mocks. You have two mocks available and you have practiced review times, you have practiced whether you would immediately do RCT, what will be your immediate management, what will be the follow-up times, identifying the injuries based on the history given. So if you have taken the trauma guideline mock, the most important focus is what investigations you will do that day, what should be your initial emergency management, what should be the follow-up period, what are the restorations, and what should be the final restorations, and how would you identify based on the clinical pictures, movement, dislocations, and whatever the PDL signs are given to you, identifying the nature of the injury, diagnosing it. So information gathering cluster question asks you which IOPA or which X-ray will you take. Sometimes you need one IOPA, sometimes you need multiple IOPAs, which area to focus on, what tooth to keep in center. Am I making sense? Am I giving you good feeding points and memorizing points where what you should be focusing on? And especially you have been practicing those questions under the mock as well, right? Both the parts. Then after, and then they ask you, okay, what is the diagnosis? These were the findings. The tooth is not mobile or tooth is mobile, tooth is dislocated or not dislocated, or palatally moved and can't bite. So there are certain giveaways and, identifying features, keywords, which help you with the diagnosis of the injury, what particular nature of the injury is. Then if it's avulsion, there is another ballpark questions, right? I mean, there is another set of questions that ask what is the medium, when you should be doing it, and what should be the reimplantation period, the prognostic factors. So avulsion has different set of questions. Again, you have been practicing all of them as well. Then comes, okay, what will you do in the emergency appointment? What will you do today? How will you recall the patient? What should be the follow-up period? So those kind of concepts also you must memorize the period of it. Again, you have been given that practice also. You have been completely diligently focusing on all those. So diagnosis and then management planning and then treatment and evaluation. What will you do in today's appointment? Or when are you going to call him next? What will be the final restoration you give? What are the signs you will be looking for under the radiographs or follow-up radiographs? All that is your treatment and evaluation. So that's how you have been preparing the trauma guidelines so far. And these are the most latest resources for the exam. So why we need this another article to prepare, right? We need it because now today we will be focusing on memorizing it immediately, having a clear memory map that where the RCT might be needed immediately and where a follow-up would be needed. So this will give you, it is like an add-on to the IADT. It is no different from IADT. All the recommendations, they match IADT. It is just another way to discuss it, but it will give you immediate memory map to how to reach and answer those questions immediately without you having to maybe create mnemonics, and then go dig deeper and maybe doubt your management. So this article today or this session today will actually help you immediately know where the RCT is instantly needed and where you can wait and regular monitoring would be required. Would that be a good contrast to memorize certain injuries which will immediately have that RCT as an answer and certain injuries where the monitoring period will come, right? But this is not just about knowing those injuries and memorizing one table and moving on. This is also about what are the complications that can happen. We will talk about the complications more in detail than in IADT. We will also talk about the monitoring period, what will you do in the monitoring period, the follow-ups, appointments, what will you be looking for? Because ADC asks you those questions, right? When you recall the patient, what is the most important thing that you will be looking for? What are the favorable signs? What are the unfavorable signs? So see, IADT guideline only gives you as a table, right? So, but today's discussion will give you more in-depth analysis of those concepts. Making sense for everyone? So the intentions are set, the targets are set, and are we set to learn and grasp and know with confidence? Because see, trauma questions, there are about 20-30 trauma questions in the examination. So it's a very, very high yield topic and absolutely requires a lot of deep understanding, a lot of accurate memorizing of some concepts, because they are memory based concepts as well. There is black and white, so in rule out it would be required for you to know these concepts by heart. All right, so can you see my screen? Everybody is ready? All right, so let's start. So the overall learning that you will take from this class would be that, whenever the tooth has a traumatic injury, there can be a favorable response or an unfavorable response to those injuries, right? And the most unfavorable responses that you can expect is ultimately the pulp death, which is the pulp necrosis, and then infection of the root canal system. So all you have to know is, because it's not caries involved, here the necrosis and infection can be different. So it can immediately undergo necrosis because of disrupted blood supply or neural supply, whereas infection may or may not follow with the bacteria entering the canal. So with caries infected pulp, there is absolutely infection which leads to the necrosis. That's a straightforward pathway. But in the traumatic injuries, it's the necrosis which will happen first, unless there is a complicated crown fracture. In that case, bacteria can immediately enter, and then the necrosis and infection are going hand in hand. So everybody gets this first number one idea, learning concept, that in traumatic injuries, pulp necrosis can happen with the crushed blood supply, but no infection at all, especially when the crown has not fractured and there is no bacterial ingress within the canal. And I will tell you, there is a management without RCT for those necrosis cases. So this is an exceptional case where you will have pulp necrosis and you will still not be doing RCT. Is everyone alert? Give me yeses and nos so I know you're following. Okay. Now, so what happens is, these infections or these injuries, they can also cause apical periodontitis, right? Or external inflammatory resorption after the necrosis and infection, right? And they will require RCT. Some of the injuries will require RCT as their emergency management, and some will require monitoring. So the immediately required RCTs, you have to memorize these 4 injuries, which is 1, a complicated crown fracture, right? Like that would in most cases require immediate RCT, but exception would be like you can still do pulp capping, partial pulpotomy in some of the cases. So what complicated crown fractures? We'll talk about that. Then complicated crown root fractures, where the crown and the root both get involved, that will absolutely require RCT. So complicated crown fracture in a mature tooth and a size is big, then pulpectomy. But otherwise, other cases with its immature, small size, you can avoid immediate RCT. But a complicated crown and root fracture will immediately require an RCT. Then comes your supracrestal coronal third root fracture. So when you have a root fracture which is in above the crest of the bone in the coronal third, that has the poorest prognosis. Remember the cervical perforation also, we've done this concept in the last class, right? So similar to that, because the bacterial ingress is highest, Creating a seal is difficult. So this will also require immediate RCT. So it is bound to get infected. Now, another situation where there is high likeliness of, getting infection is, or highly likely or predictable pulp necrosis is your basic injuries, and which are like avulsion, intrusion, lateral luxation, which is involving a crown fracture, and extrusion, which is also involving a crown fracture. So those are your complicated injuries, right? All in your mature teeth, these four injuries: avulsion, intrusion, lateral luxation, which has crown fracture, and also your extrusion, which has a crown fracture. They will require your immediate RCTs. Every other injury other than this will require regular monitoring. So this is one memorizing factor. I will discuss about these injuries again one more time. So now once you have those, trauma responses, there can be favorable and unfavorable responses. And ADC gives you direct questions on this. So let's look at the table here, the table 1, which is the favorable and which are the unfavorable responses, and what will you do for individual one. So favorable responses include that you will see that the pulp is recovering and it's returning to the normal, that your response to the pulp test will also be available. You will also find on radiographs that there is increase in the thickness of dentine formation. So tertiary dentine formation also indicates vital pulp. And if it's an immature tooth, then pulp revascularization will happen. Even fibrotic changes within the pulp fibrosis, and pulp canal calcification. These are also indicator of favorable responses. Is that clear for everyone? Because we have been having questions where pulp canal calcification was given and all the other signs were from here, and we have been choosing your pulp canal calcification as the favorable response. Remember, anyone? We've done this, I think, in the Pedo Ortho Ultimate Advanced File Volume 2 classes few days back. Is it good now, Taranu? You asked for zooming, right? Nivedita? Okay, so pulp canal calcification doesn't mean that pulp is completely obliterated. This means a lot of calcification is being happening, but in between histologically, there is vital pulp present. Can everyone understand this? Know this? That pulp calcification doesn't mean that there is no pulp at all. Yes, radiographically you will see diffuse calcification, but histologically there will be vital pulp within, which is depositing all the calcification, right? The calcification is coming from a vital pulp. Without vital pulp, there will be no laying down of excessive tertiary teeth. Does that make complete sense for everyone? Yes or no, please? So what are the unfavorable responses? Again, another direct question. Let's look at that too. So when there is acute inflammation or pulpitis, it will represent itself as sign and symptoms of pain, sensitivity to cold or hot or both. Then that will set up within a few days, or when you have done a pulpotomy or partial pulpotomy, in few days after, you will get those symptoms. So that will mean it's an unfavorable response and it will go towards the RCT. Then chronic inflammation, chronic pulpitis, if it's a complicated crown fracture and you see pulp polyp coming out of that exposure, right? So that will also indicate requirement of an RCT. It's an unfavorable response. Pulp necrobiosis, pulp necrosis with or without infection. I'm going to talk about without infection. That requires waiting period still. So only pulp necrosis without infection, although it is an unfavorable response, you can still delay the RCT and continue to monitor. We are going to talk about that as well. Then pulpless and infected root canal system. If it gets infected, immediately you will require an RCT because that can trigger external resorption in the root. Then anytime you see a sign of internal tooth resorption, So pulp necrobiosis, again, it's a histological response, Gabby, right? So basically the signs would match your pulp necrosis only. And then your internal tooth resorption, that will also be unfavorable. It could be on surface, it could be inflammatory or replacement. Any kind of internal resorption is also a poor indicator or an unfavorable response. Then comes your combination of above. Any of these symptoms which are present together will also be considered extremely unfavorable for the tooth. These are your favorable and unfavorable responses. Now, what are you going to do and how you're going to manage them? So, favorable responses do not require endodontic intervention, right? We'll talk about it. Let's talk about it. Within a week is the best period. Although for avulsion, within a week is the best period for avulsion. Okay? But it requires immediate RCT. Not for the immature one. We're talking about the mature one here. Okay? Now, the favorable responses will not require endodontic intervention, and teeth with these responses should be like monitored with regular reviews for as long as possible. So, what you should be doing for favorable responses is keep monitoring them as long as possible. So, whenever you see these responses, you're going to just monitor them, right? And basically, after any traumatic dental injuries, right, these favorable responses can also turn unfavorable. You can't forget that as well. So doesn't mean that if it's showing favorable now, it cannot go unfavorable, and that is the reason you have to monitor. So it is direct exam concept. Why do you need to still monitor a favorable response? What is the answer? Yes. Why? Because it can turn unfavorable. Why? Because there could be some microscopic infractions, there could be some break in the restorations, there could be some micro cracks which can lead the bacteria to get into the canal and then cause the later stage infection. Is that complete sense for everyone? Does that make complete sense for everyone? Why you will be continuing to monitor. So it's a beautiful concept, learn it. Then comes, so every point that I'm going to discuss in today's session is your concept directly asked in the exam. Now comes your unfavorable responses following any injury. They are mostly related to pulp necrosis or pulp getting infected. Now, these responses, when you get a necrosed pulp or you get infected canal, they will require endodontic intervention, right? And because of the same reasons, because of it getting spread into the periapical area, and then it can lead to the external resorption as well. So they require immediate root canal endodontic intervention. Now comes the important point. Pulp necrosis isn't always infectious, can occur immediately after your blood supply gets crushed, right? We're talking about permanent teeth, Karam, for right now. In any unfavorable response in mature or immature would require immediate RCT, Karam, right? So unfavorable responses for both mature and immature would require immediate endodontic intervention. Okay. And for the favorable responses, mature or immature, you would require regular monitoring. So for now, we are not distinguishing the mature and immature. I will highlight it myself whenever there is a distinction required. Okay. So now coming back to, there is a situation where the pulp necrosis is not always associated with infected canal and actually could be just crushed blood supply, severed blood supply during an injury, like in your luxation, right? Or in avulsion also, right? That's an instant necrosis where the blood supply is cut off. So whenever there is a luxation, dislocation, and avulsion, that's an immediate cut off. So now there is an example I want to show you here. This is an image which shows a maxillary left central incisor, your tooth 2-1 here, right? It was extruded, and the age of the patient was 12 when it was extruded, and which was, now the patient is almost 22. So it was 10 years older. Like it was a, after injury, it has been 10 years when this x-ray was taken. Okay. Now the patient has had regular reviews since then, and they have found that it has consistently, since 10 years, not responded to any pulp test. That means it is permanently necrosed, right? A pulp cannot be stunned for 10 years, right? It had to recover, it would recover maybe in few months or a year, right? That means consistently when you have no response to the pulp test, it has been completely non-vital. That's what you would call it, pulp necrosed, right? But there have been no other symptoms, no radiographic changes, no apical periodontitis, no other unfavorable response. Can you tell? Just the pulp necrosis, no other unfavorable response. Can you all agree with that? Do you see the PDL is extremely normal? Right? There is no apical periodontitis. There is no pain. Sensitivity, of course, is not there. There is no pulp sensation and there is no resorption. Can we all appreciate this is your classic pulp necrosis without infection? Right? So no clinical signs also to suggest any infected root canal symptom. Yes, there have been some calcification within the pulp chamber. So there was initially, maybe the pulp was vital and some calcification happened, and then ultimately that also died out, right? So it is a probable pulp necrosis, but no sign of infection, no discoloration, no clinical sign, Aisha, no radiographic sign. Does that make sense? Everybody, this is your classic case SBQ content. You must know what Australian Dental Journal guidelines recommend for these teeth. So if this comes in September, a probable pulp necrosis without any signs of infection, you will not, you will be tempted to jump to your RCTs, right? Because of the necrosis, isn't that right? There are no other signs and symptoms which are suggesting that it's infected. Right? So how it could have happened? Maybe the pulp's blood supply initially recovered and nerve supply did not recover. So that's why it's not giving any sign of the pulp test, because actually the pulp sensibility tests are not true vitality tests. They're basically the neurological tests, right? Whether the pulp's neural supply is intact or not. So it could be like, it could be actually vital, but the neural supply is lost, which is quite unlikely, but still probable, right? And definitely the calcification within the canal is seen, and little bit of chamber is also seen, right? So that could also indicate why it is not showing the responses to the pulp sensibility test, because the pulp is slightly cut off because of the calcification, right? So all the above diagnoses are likely. It could be calcified pulp, it could be neurologically dead pulp, or it could be completely pulp necrosis without infection. All three are possible. Okay? All three are possible because you're not histologically sectioning the tooth to see it, right? So what happens is just the lack of pulp sensibility responses, you will not start the RCT. But again, for future also, continue to monitor it. And then if any other unfavorable responses show up, then you start with your RCT. So just for like multiple years, if you're not getting your pulp responses and you think it's a non-vital or a necrosed pulp, it is still a probability that it may still be partially vital, or because of calcification, it's not giving you sensibility tests. So just the lack of, so although no response to the pulp test, right, will be an unfavorable response, but even for consistent years without infection, that does not indicate RCT. Is the concept taken? Concept understood? So even if in the examination they write the statement in the history that pulp you have concluded or you suspect that pulp may be necrosed, but it is without infection. If you get this classic sentence and keyword in the examination, would you please not choose immediate RCT? That's my giveaway here. Okay? See, if that discoloration is just yellowness because of the calcification, that still does not call for RCT. That requires aesthetic improvement. Okay? Again, it is not immature or mature. Okay? It's about the permanent teeth. Now, but the necrotic pulp can get infected at a later stage. So that's why if you have diagnosed it as having necrotic pulp, but no other signs of infection, then it is still prudent that you also continue to do follow-ups even in later periods, right? Continue to review. Yes. Yes, Gabby. Because if there is an entryway, Gabby, and the pulp is still there, whether necrosed or vital, if there is an entryway, there is a chance that it can get infected. Especially the necrosed pulp will not have a immune response to fight any ingress of bacteria. Is that correct, Gabby? Especially when it is non-vital pulp, a necrosed pulp, it will not have any immune system to fight off even the minor bacteria, and bacteria will proliferate in that canal and spread to the periapical root. Okay. Now, whenever you have pulp responses which can occur, which are occurring in either individually or in combinations, right? Those would classically require immediate RCT, right? Any unfavorable responses which are happening, they will require immediate RCT. Now, this is another example where, the simultaneous and sequential pulp responses were seen after a traumatic dental injury. So it was mandibular right central incisor here, which suffered a lateral luxative injury, and there were some crown infractions, so micro cracks also, right? Again, this injury is pretty old. This radiograph was taken 8 years after the injury, right? So pulp initially recovered, functioned normally also. Pulp canal calcification also happened before the subsequent pulp necrosis and infection occurred. Wait a second. What's happened? Yeah, just a second. All right, 1 second. Is this back now? The screen is back now? So you see this case, classic case again. It could all be your exam cases. All can be your possible examination SPQs, right? So this was, now 8 years back, this injury got, and it was lateral luxation. So you can see also some, it was displaced and then the infractions. After a few years, initially the pulp vitality was intact, right? It functioned normally. See, the calcification also happened on the right mandibular incisor. Do you see it is completely calcified? So all the favorable signs are visible. Agreed? One second, guys. Let me just attempt the live thing once. Yeah, hold on. Just let's take a quick pause here. Yes, Pavneet, there is a radiolucency, absolutely, right? So that is exactly what I'm going to be talking about. Just let me, my team is trying to see if they can get it live on Facebook. But while they do that, let me just talk about it, Pavneet. Good observation that you saw the radio radiolucency there, periapical radiolucency. So this X-ray was taken 8 years after the injury. That goes out to show that initially favorable responses can in future turn unfavorable. Agreed? Everybody. So this infection will be called chronic periapical periodontitis or chronic apical periodontitis, right? Because it is a radiolucency, right? And not painful on percussion. So the infection seeped in and slowly it led to the chronic apical periodontitis. And then it would be also called secondary acute apical periodontitis if it becomes painful. Agreed? Initially, if it is asymptomatic, it's chronic. But then if it gets obliterated and it becomes, because now initially it was treated, Anushka, right? It is a secondary infection. So this is an active infection, Nikita, not rarefying osteitis. Initially, there was no infection. Rarefying osteitis is after treatment if you have a radiolucency left over. Yeah, I know the screen is not visible. We're just attempting one thing to go live. Just hold on. All right. So the learning point here is, see, before you framing questions, let's talk about it. What are the learning points, Anushka? Learning points is that yes, initially the favorable responses can become unfavorable, right? And then it was not because of the injury, the primary source, but because of the bacterial ingress later on, it is the secondary infection. Clear for everyone? So yes, the favorable one can turn unfavorable, and because it's a secondary infection, so it will be called your secondary apical periodontitis, secondary acute apical periodontitis. Yes, it is on the history plus IOPM combined. Okay, so now pulp necrosis, where you have infection, can have various responses. Either apical periodontitis, as you see on this mandibular tooth, right? That is what happened. Pulp necrosis happened initially. Initially, there was calcification. Pulp may have been surviving, but then eventually it underwent necrosis and the bacteria got through the cracks and it became an infected root canal system. So what happens is it can become an apical periodontitis, which is classically seen here. What else can happen? It can become your external inflammatory resorption, either lateral or your apical, right? And then the third response that can happen is the bone loss, which can also happen apical or lateral, and which could be parallel to both of these situations. So either inflammation or resorption and bone loss can be associated with both of them. Agreed? Does that make complete sense for everyone? These are your possible consequence of your unfavorable responses within the periapical area after your pulp gets infected. Okay, so what can be the response of the periradicular area? This is a direct exam question again. Now, injuries which will require immediate root canal treatment. Okay, let's talk about those. So what is the indication for root canal treatment after trauma to a tooth? Let's talk about, yes, anytime, Pavni. These changes can happen few years later, so long-term monitoring is also required, as given in your IATT guidelines as well. Now let's talk about, do you want to memorize the points where you would do immediate RCT? Any of these situations given to you in the exam, could you please simply choose immediate RCT without getting confused? So one is complicated crown fracture, but not all. right? Wherever you can, first you would prefer your conservative pulp treatment, pulpotomy, partial pulpotomy. But of course, there is an endodontic intervention, so it's included in this section, right? It is still an endodontic intervention, right? Even if you do partial pulpotomy, complete pulpotomy, it is still an endodontic intervention. Pulp partially or completely has to be removed. Then RCT you would only do in the complicated crown fractures where your intraradicular retention required for restoration of the tooth. So if the size of the fracture is so big that you require post to retain the crown, then you would do an RCT. Agreed? So complicated crown fracture would require immediate RCT when you require post for the retention of the crown. Does that make complete sense? Please. Any other situation, immature, mature, you would first attempt conservative pulp treatment, and that we have done in the IADT guidelines also. Just goes out to reinforce. So if you memorize this table, your multiple exam questions, the immediate management is directly on your fingertips. Does that make sense? Does that give you the sense overall that how helpful this becomes, this table? Because any of these injuries, you diagnose it in the information gathering cluster questions and diagnosis cluster questions. Once you diagnose your injuries, immediately you have the answer that if it's broken down, the complicated crown fracture is up to the cervical level, definitely you require a post for the retention. I will have to go for RCT. I can't do partial pulpotomies or complete pulpotomies. Then becomes your complicated crown root fracture. Anytime you see in the history crown and root both are fractured, please immediately advise RCT. Then supracrestal coronal third root fracture, which is also called your coronal cross fracture. We are not talking about caries, Charmi. We are talking precisely just injuries right now. So let's not confuse there. Okay. Then if you suspect there is an external inflammatory resorption, immediate, yes. Following the traumatic injuries in the emergency management only side. In the emergency appointments, you're going to do that. So we'll talk about other injuries which will also include immediate RCT are the ones which lead to external inflammatory resorption. What are those? I'm going to be talking about it, which is on the table 3. Yeah. So traumatic injuries which predict higher chances of necrosis and infection, and then which can lead to the external inflammatory resorption are intrusion. So mature teeth and immature teeth. In immature teeth, intrusion with a crown fracture, it's a complicated injury. Avulsion with a crown fracture will require immediate RCT. Can you memorize these two things for immature? Because avulsion with immature does not require immediate RCT. Yes or no? Only with the unfavorable sign it does. Please give me yes or no's. This is an important learning point here. But avulsion with a crown fracture in an immature would require immediate RCT. Can you memorize that? Right? Avulsion in an immature permanent teeth, Jesslyn, if it's pure avulsion in an immature tooth or if it's pure intrusion in immature tooth, does not require immediate RCT. As per IADT, you have learned those. Right or wrong, Jesslyn? But if your intrusion and avulsion, China, we're talking precisely about permanent teeth. I want you to focus on what we're doing, otherwise you'll miss out the points here. But in these two injuries in immature, where the immediate RCT is not required, but if they are associated with crown fractures, that would indicate for immediate RCT in immature teeth. Does that make sense? So intrusion and avulsion on their own do not require immediate RCT in immature permanent teeth. But when these two injuries are associated with crown fracture in immature teeth, they will require immediate RCT. Sorted? Another situations are in completely mature teeth, when you have intrusion, when you have avulsion, when you have lateral luxative injury with a crown fracture, or you have extrusion with a crown fracture. these also indicate immediate RCT. So table 2 and 3, if you can memorize these, now these have been added to your hot notes. Yes or no, please? Your table 2 and 3, this complete latest ADJ guideline has been added to your hot notes. Has anyone here seen this hot note before? Same, your calcium silicate and indications of RCT after traumatic injuries, Narendra. It was announced on the group also. The new hot note was created and added to it was added to endodontics. Okay. So you have to review, Narendra. These tables you have to revise, okay? But these two tables, if you memorize them, will they immediately not come handy in the exam? Very small tables, only few points, but immediate answers in exam. Could you do that? Right? So now some injuries definitely will require immediate root canal, which we have done in table 2 and table 3, right? And you will always also see whether it's a mature tooth or an immature tooth before you start your RCT, because you will have to either create calcific barrier or not, right? And you will attempt natural pulp revascularization if immediate RCT is not indicated in your immature teeth. You will attempt the revascularization. And immediate RCTs should be avoided in some cases, and we will talk about that also. I'll give you the table. So which cases do not require immediate RCT? So every other injury other than table 2 and table 3 will require regular follow-up, monitoring, and check for the recovery. Now, what are the signs that you will be observing when you follow up? I'm going to be talking about them. Now, let's talk about individual injuries here, which require immediate RCT. So, number one is complicated crown fracture, where the crown size is so big that you're requiring a post for the restoration. So, in that case, RCT is immediately needed. Okay? Agreed? Yes or no? Did we put intrusion, right? Pure intrusion in. Yes, in mature teeth we are doing that, not in immature. In immature intrusion, Priyanka, with crown fracture will go for it. So what you're talking, Priyanka, is about mature teeth. And as per IADT guidelines, yes, the answer is yes. You do require RCT all the time because of high likeliness of pulp undergoing necrosis, getting infected, and then external resorption also taking place. Priyanka, you got your answer? So in complicated crown fractures, RCT is needed when the tooth is completely mature and the size of the crown which is lost is big and you require a post for the restoration. If retention is not required, then you can consider pulp capping, partial pulpotomy, and pulpotomy based on the size of the exposure. So let me see. Differentiation between the mature and immature Rahmat was on the table 3. That's the only distinction. Any other place, this works. When it's not mentioned, Rahmat, that means it is for both. When it is mentioned, then only it applies to the immature. Can we take it like that, please? When it is not mentioned, of course, it includes both. Okay, so if the crown fracture size is big, right, and you require the retention, post for retention, it applies to both. So wherever it would be applicable, I will automatically cover it. And wherever I'm not mentioning, please automatically derive that it applies to both. Okay. Then comes your supracrestal coronal third root fracture. So whether immature or mature, if it is a crown and root fracture, it would require immediate RCT basically. But these kind of injuries happening in an immature tooth are less likely. But if they still happen, you will be requiring immediate RCT, Rahmat. So wherever it's not mentioned, the nature of the injury is deciding, not the root level. If the root level was also contributing it, the article and the session will automatically mention it there in the text. Okay, Rahmat? This is actually a good way to learn it, because here the nature of the injury is deciding the management and not the root level. Does that make sense here? I'm trying to simplify it for you. I don't want to give you various permutations and combinations. I want to simplify it for you, that these are the nature of the injuries that you can memorize, where you don't even have to worry about the root status. Does that make sense for everyone here, guys? The job here is to make memorizing the indications of RCT easy. Not again, because again, permutations and combinations you're learning in the IADT guideline tables. This is to clear your head and give you a classic injury specific decisions. Okay. Supracrestal coronal third fractures here, as you can appreciate. Number one is the complicated crown fracture. As I told you, it's a huge size, almost till the gingival level it's fractured, but it is still a crown fracture. You will be requiring a post. So yes, RCT will be indicated. Then you look at the second situation, which is situation B. It's a crown root fracture. Complicated crown root fracture, it will also require. Then the third situation, supracrestal coronal third root fracture. Crown is completely intact. It is a root fracture, but which is above the level of the bone, will require. So see, in this case alone, you can't do RCT, Anushka. It will become a complicated case. You will require surgical crown lengthening in combination with orthodontic extrusion, and the tooth can be saved. Right, Anushka? Complicated crown root fractures also will require now in your teeth with incomplete root development, the treatment can still be challenging. You can aim to preserve the pulp, right? You can do partial pulpectomy, but these are experimental situations, may or may not work. Okay. What is the drawback is, if you do come immediate RCT in complicated crown root fractures in immature teeth, the dentine is limited. It is a thin canal, thin chambers, right? So there is an increased risk of future root fractures. But good thing is the combined root and crown fractures is rare in young patients. So in immature teeth, you will not find such situations. Okay, and in then supracrestal coronal third root fracture, you will do root canal treatment. Post and core restoration will eventually be needed, but you will require periodontal surgery, which is a surgical crown lengthening, or and combined with orthodontic extrusion. And you might have to do a gingival recontouring, right? No, not absolutely, Anushka. Cannot say. The prognostic factors depend. If you can perform these procedures and a natural root can be preserved and a post and crown can be given, so extraction is not always necessary and not even considered better, depending upon if you're preserving the root. Otherwise, you will have to go with FPDs. You will sacrifice your abutment teeth. If you're going implant, that's expensive and obviously not as natural longevity as your natural root. So no, definitely can't say that extraction will be better. Depends on the case selection and the skill. Definitely would be requiring specialist intervention, but cannot say that extraction is better. That's your last resort here. Okay. Now this is your, sometimes in combination, sometimes one of them, surgical crown lengthening or ortho extrusion crown lengthening, or sometimes in combination again. Now, another reason when you will do immediate RCT is to prevent external inflammatory resorption, which we learned the factors that is in table 3, right? Where the chances of inflammatory resorption are higher. So in these situations also, you will do immediate RCT. When there is in immature one, there is a crown fracture, and with the avulsion also where there's a crown fracture in immature, and in fully mature teeth, extrusion with a crown fracture, lateral luxation with a crown fracture, and intrusion and avulsion. These will require immediate RCTs, right? Now, there is another case example which can be asked in the exam. On the radiographs, you see there are two different kinds of resorption. So this can be presenting radiographs in the examination, where you have to appreciate the lateral resorption and the apical resorption. In figure B, right, which is a radiograph, can you see both the mesial and the distal roots have your external resorption on the root end? Can you appreciate? Can you see how it has lost its anatomy apically? Yeah. So this is both your mesial and distal roots are involved apically. Now coming to your radiograph D, in tooth number 2-4 and 2-5, both the premolars, extensive external lateral inflammatory resorption of the roots are seen. Can everybody also appreciate these two and these two? Crystal clear? So in exam, when you're given such x-rays, now that your eyes are practicing them, you should not miss these two. So here you can find this, right? On the mesial root as well as on the distal root, there is a resorption in the bone itself and then also the lost surface. So if there was no root surface loss, it would be still apical periodontitis, right? Within the bone. Agree, everybody? So bone resorption because of apical periodontitis if there was no loss of the root structure. But the moment root also starts getting lost, it becomes external inflammatory resorption. Here also you see the root is losing its anatomy laterally here and apically here. So can you distinctly tell two different kinds of external resorptions, apical as well as lateral? And they are not just bone radiolucencies, they are involving the root structure. That is how you tell between the apical periodontitis and your resorption. Right? Clear for everyone? This also. Now there is another response when you do root canal treatment after following up when the unfavorable signs show up, right? So what are the injuries? Now you must know where you would only follow up and do not require immediate RCT. So these are your in your immature teeth, right? In your immature teeth, these are all the injuries which will not require immediate RCT but regular follow-up and monitoring, which is crown infraction, any uncomplicated crown fracture, uncomplicated crown and root fracture, root fractures which are apical, middle, and even subcrestal coronal third root fracture, right? Which is below the crest. Because we put supracrestal in the absolute table, remember? Supracrestal coronal third root fracture goes into the absolute immediate required, whether immature or mature. That is why table 2 does not have any distinction between mature and immature. That applies to both. Pain is an unfavorable response, right, Rahmat? So again, it's an immediate RCT. Any unfavorable response is an immediate RCT. We are learning by the nature of the injury. What you're asking is the nature of the unfavorable sign. They are distinct, right? That point we already covered, Rahmat, right? Now look at this, Rahmat. You were asking about, no? Ma'am, please give distinction between immature and mature. So table 2 doesn't require you any distinction from you. Table 3 requires, and that's why there was given. Okay? That intrusion and avulsion with crown fracture in immature, immediate RCT. Right? Exactly, Jesslyn. If you can memorize table 2 and table 3, then everything else, every other injury would be part of your not requiring RCT. Does that make complete sense? If you can memorize table 2 and 3, everything else is your does not require immediate RCT. Okay. Now, what can be the monitoring signs and what can look like unfavorable sign, but you have to notice and do not immediately start your RCT, which is your transient apical breakdown. That is one sign Again, an expert clinician will only identify it. It can mimic infection, but it resolves in 3 to 6 months. So transient apical breakdown is a temporary radiolucency, crown discoloration, and no pulp response, followed by healing signs later. Now, Rahmat, everybody else, because I know based on your questions, I know you guys will have this question. So that means even the unfavorable responses like like immediate radiolucency or crown discoloration and no pulp response, but there is no pain here, right? Can be the signs of healing. So unless it's a table 2 or table 3 injury, if it's table 6 injury with these findings, that also does not mean immediate RCT. These are unfavorable responses to begin with, but you will follow up because I told you just no pulp response again is no reason to start immediate RCT. And when it's combined with discoloration and a radiolucency, which heals after 6 months, can be avoided with RCT because it can be a transient apical breakdown. It's the pulps, it's your tooth's natural healing response. Yes, Kizran, I'm going to show that again, but let's talk about first the follow-up, okay? This point, transient apical breakdown. Pain, if you add to it, Jeslyn, then transient apical breakdown is a repair mechanism. So it won't give you pain. That is the tell sign, whether it's infection or it's your necrosis and it's your transient apical breakdown or necrosis and infection. So necrosis and infection will include pain, swelling, apical radiolucency, resorption, or sinus. So any pain or swelling or resorption or draining sinus. These are the signs certainly indicating infection. But just your radiolucency, crown discoloration, and no pulp response without swelling, pain, or draining sinus or root resorption can be transient apical breakdown, which is your tooth's repair mechanism. Can you now become expert clinicians? I'm taking you level above IADT guidelines, guys, here. So you have to, put that effort with me if you want to stretch your limits. Because of course it's a very advanced level, so it will not seep in within seconds, but you have to stretch your limits now. Look at Jagjit, it's in front of you on the screen. What TAB includes, and when you add pain to that recipe, it becomes infection. Is that clear? Transient apical breakdown is a body's repair mechanism. Repair does not happen with pain, right? Repair is an anti-inflammatory response. It can initially break down to form more bone, but it will not be associated with inflammation. So no pain. Agreed? So transient apical breakdown can look like breakdown of the bone, so radiolucency, crown discoloration, and pulp response. But root getting resorbed or your pain or swelling or draining sinus means it's infected. Does that make full sense? Anyone who gets it, congratulations, you have achieved the level above and beyond IADT guidelines. And if you haven't, please watch the recording again because this is way advanced concept and you will not get it in one go. Now coming back to Kizran's request, because I'm now going to be talking about the follow-up requirements, what you will be doing in the follow-up appointments. So I'm not talking about the injuries which require immediate RCT. Let's summarize table 2 and 3, everyone. Okay. So table 2 includes complicated crown fractures where you require post, rest, everything else you will manage with partial pulpotomy, pulp capping, or pulpotomies. RCT immediately where you require post, where it's like complete crown gone. Then any complicated crown and root fracture where the pulp is exposed. It would be rare in an immature tooth, but still table 2 includes both immature and mature tooth. Everybody, okay? Is that clear? Everyone, Rahmat, this table 2 includes both mature and immature. Then any supracrestal, above the crest of the bone, coronal third root fracture, again, mature or immature, will require immediate RCT. and any situation where external inflammatory resorption has to be avoided, which includes table 3. Table 3 now has two distinct factors, immature and mature. Before I show you, I want you to from memory recollect with me. Immature had two injuries in that table 3. What were those? Intrusion and avulsion with crown fracture. Yes or no? Yes? Perfect. And mature had four situations there. Lateral luxation and extrusion with crown fracture and avulsion and intrusion in all the situations. Yes? So 4 and 2. Extrusion and lateral luxation with a crown fracture and intrusion and avulsion always in mature teeth. Simple, easy peasy, no complications. Beautiful or not? Now tell me, by knowing these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 injuries on table 3 and then these 4 injuries here. Okay, so 4 here and 6 there. So total 10 injuries. If you can memorize it, you immediately, exactly, China. That's the purpose of this session. Trauma guidelines simplified as much as they could. There is no other way you could have simplified it, because this is the ultimate management questions where people go wrong. So in these 10 injuries, you don't even have to worry about learning the follow-up periods, right? As simple as it gets. Now let's talk about the injuries where you were not requiring it. In that also, I've told you transient apical breakdown, another new concept which was not included in the IADT guidelines. So everybody is familiar with that also now. So if no pain and no swelling and no root resorption, your transient apical breakdown can be expected. So you have to keep that in mind and do not rush into your RCTs there. Now, what is your follow-up schedule and what should be you monitoring? What tests you should be doing? What investigations are required? Right? So follow-up schedule you must know, and follow-up, what are the specific findings that you will be observing and assessing at your follow-up examinations. So in particular, you will be in your mature teeth, and in immature teeth, you will be looking for separate things. So in incompletely developed teeth, in immature teeth, you will check for calcification, which indicates pulp survival. Yes, absolutely, Pavni. Pain is the differentiating factor, swelling is the differentiating factor, root resorption is the differentiating factor, and draining sinus is the differentiating factor. Those four things indicate sure short infection of the canal. Is that clear for everyone else as well? Good question, Pavneet. Does that help? Gabby, you also? So pain, swelling, root resorption, and your, what's the fourth point? Pain, swelling, root resorption, and the draining sinus. They are your sure short indicators for resorption. Discoloration, periapical radiolucency, and no response to pulp sensibility test. Just them are not. And when those three classic signs are alone present, please suspect transient apical breakdown, and that resolves in 3 to 6 months. So your follow-up appointments will reveal whether it worsens or whether it heals. Does that make sense now? So in 6 months follow-up, you will know and confirm. Okay. So in immature teeth on follow-up appointments, please check for calcification. Please see that root is continuing to develop. And if the root is not growing, then it is likely that it is becoming necrosed. Then continue to assess that whether it is becoming infected. Okay. And in other teeth, which includes the mature teeth and immature, in all the teeth, specifically look for any periapical radiolucency. If it is no symptom, then it could be chronic apical periodontitis or transient apical breakdown also. If it has symptoms like pain or swelling, it can be acute apical periodontitis, and it means the pulp is infected now. Any swelling and any draining sinus, they all indicate infection. In 3 to 6 months, transient apical breakdown will heal. The radiolucency will resolve. It's a temporary radiolucency. That's a classic sign of TAB, transient apical breakdown. Let's call it TAB. The classic sign is after 3 to 6 months, the radiolucency will go, vanish, resolve. Again, tell sign. Any persistent radiolucency with symptoms and swellings indicates infection, and then you would require RCT. In your follow-up schedule, when you find this, you go for RCT. Am I making full sense here, guys? Or if you see any external inflammatory resorption, radiolucency, adjacent bone, it also indicates your. So root and bone combined is your external inflammatory resorption. I showed you two X-rays on the mandibular molars and the maxillary premolars. Everybody could appreciate it. Now RCT is required if the periapical radiolucency or resorption is present and should begin as soon as diagnosed. So any resorption or periapical radiolucency, only differentiating factor is just the TAB radiolucency. That is why I taught you that almost every radiolucency will require, but TAB will heal after 3 to 6 months. Any periapical radiolucency after 6 months without symptom is your chronic apical periodontitis, Simar, right? So it would require RCT, because if after 6 months it's not healing, that means it wasn't TAB. That means it's a persistent chronic periapical infection, chronic apical abscess or chronic periapical periodontitis. Right, Simar? Got your answer? So, because TAB would heal in 6 months. So, any periapical radiolucency, right? Now, these are your follow-up schedules. 1 week, 2 week, 4 weeks, then 2 months, then 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, annually for 5 years then, and then every 3 to 5 years for as long as possible. That is why. So 5 years and 3 to 5 years are also important, because we saw in 2 of the cases, 8 years after, 10 years after, the unfavorable responses came. Agreed? TAB can never be associated with pain, Aisha. I explained that. TAB will never be associated with pain. Pain is not involved in TAB. If it is pain, then it is not TAB. Absolutely correct, China. Right? Clear for you? Aisha? Right? Absolutely correct, China. Okay? Got your answers? If it is painful, if there is a swelling, if there is a sinus, it is not TAB. Simple. So this is your follow-up schedule. And then the conclusion is that your pulp can show favorable or unfavorable responses. Most serious unfavorable outcomes are necrosis, infection, and which can lead to apical periodontitis, chronic or acute. Like Simar asked, if there was a radiolucency beyond 6 months and there is no pain, then it's a chronic apical periodontitis, still requires RCT. External inflammatory resorption, which will lead to resorption of bone and root combined, also requires immediate RCT. So you must clearly understand these unfavorable responses, which will require immediate RCT, and there you cannot delay it. Based on the favorable and unfavorable also now you got, and based on the nature of the injury, the 10 injuries which require immediate, that also you got. And regular reviews are critical, especially within the first 3 to 6 months, to monitor delayed complications like necrosis or infection, because in 3 to 6 months you will get the idea whether it's TAB or not. So TAB is discoloration, transient temporary radiolucency, and no response to pulp. But it's a very temporary phase, and there will be no other unfavorable response. Okay, so based on the nature of the injury, table 2 and 3, and based on the favorable and unfavorable responses, that's the second learning point, and knowing the TAB. No, nothing changed. This is exactly in alignment with your IADT, Priyanka. But IADT does not cover this. Basically, this is above and beyond IADT. So they are asking you, see, investigation questions you will be answering using IADT. Diagnosing of the injury. What is the injury? You will learn from your IADT. That indicates the sign and symptoms, right? Then the management, the follow-up period which differ, the splinting periods that differ, again from the IADT. But the complicated and unfavorable responses, that will require immediate RCT, right? Exactly, Chena. But still, even if you didn't know IIDT, I won't still say that because there are continuous information gathering cluster questions. Every trauma guideline SBQ has the first question: which X-ray will you do? What test will you do? Which tooth should be in the center? Where the beam should be pointed? How would you know this from this article? You will only know that from IIDT guidelines. Is that right, Chena? That was Chena, right? Yeah. So yes, IADT is indispensable because all the information gathering cluster you have to. Then comes your question, okay, after getting what X-ray you will take, then it will ask you, okay, what is the nature of the injury? How would you diagnose this? That's the second question in the trauma mock or your trauma SBQ any. How will you know? Because IIDT guidelines only tells you no that in intrusion, what are the signs, in luxation, what are the signs, lateral luxations, extrusion, intrusion, how many millimeters of intrusion, how many millimeters of extrusion, whether you will do orthodontic repositioning or surgical repositioning. All of that you will learn from IIDT guidelines. No other article is giving you that. So IADT is a Bible for trauma, and this you can see is like an add-on volume to that. So this is also extremely important now. Right? Table 3 is complicated fractures, no, Priyanka? With intrusion and avulsion. So it's a complicated injury, combined injury, right? In immature. And in mature also extrusion and lateral luxation is combined. And intrusion and avulsion was anyways, you knew last two, intrusion and avulsion, you anyways knew, no, immediate RCT in permanent mature teeth. No. Aurora, you will follow the individual follow-up times as given in IADT. Only here they have given a general table, Aurora, right? Here they have given a general. When you don't remember any of the follow-ups, please know that these are the best times to follow up, right? It's a simplified version, Aurora. In IADT, the advanced follow-up times are given for specific injuries. Now remember, we got a question in Ultimate Advanced File Volume 2, which was a uncomplicated crown fracture. Anyone here? Everyone, right? Who's enrolled with me remembers that SPQ? Uncomplicated crown fracture, we did it. But the follow-up times were given of the complicated crown fracture as per the IADT guideline. Did not match the uncomplicated one, right? But still it is not set in stone. So those were still the correct timings because these all are the follow-up periods. Got that? That's why we chose the closest one. That is why these months, these weeks, and these years are important ones still. Yes, if you can get exactly matching the ones given in your IATT, which is fine, but sometimes you won't, so you will take the closest. Okay? Aurora, you got your answer, everybody else as well. So yes, this is way advanced now, but then if you do this class and you do IADT guidelines and you please do 2 trauma guideline mocks, if you please do these, one this session, one IADT guideline session, and then you do the trauma mocks. Guys, please spend a day, call it your trauma day, and get all your trauma out by doing these 2 sessions and then taking 2 mocks. You will thank me later after the exam when you see 20-25 questions on this topic. Okay? All right. So thank you so much. This is getting intense, right, Gabby? This is what you all wanted, right? After the sample paper released, Aurora specifically wanted me to do this session. So Aurora, I'm sure you're happy. And this is intense, right? But that's what we do, right? 1 month before exam, do you really want me to just do TG with you? So, of course, you would not expect, natural, like very common sessions from me now. I hope you know I am going to bring some real intense, some real advanced, some real way ahead of the curve kind of sessions now. You don't mind TG, of course. That's why ACUS is doing that for you, Gabby. And for sure, please, by this time, 3-4 times, you guys must have done it. Do it the 5th time. Fall in love with your TG. Please, please do that. So yeah, it was quite intense, wonderful lecture. Thank you so much, everyone. And apologies for whatever happened to this Facebook Live, and we'll see how we can fix it so that next week we don't have the same rut. Thank you so much. I will try to upload it on the YouTube. So if you're not enrolled with us and you want to watch this class again, we'll upload the YouTube video on our Facebook. So those who are not enrolled but do want to revise it, because you would require the revision. Those who are enrolled, it would be uploaded on the app very soon. So please watch it again. And as I said, please have a trauma watch party. Watch the trauma guideline classes, watch this class, and please take your mocks, both trauma mocks, and you will thank me later, not today. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. Have a great evening. Thank you, Aisha. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Parva. All right. Thank you, Jaslyn. Thank you so much, everyone. Bye. Thank you. Or Emma. That's why I thought that it's a name I'm seeing for the first time. But I hope you enjoyed it. And it was quite an intense class for the first class. Let me tell you that. So if you survive this class, others you will still find breezy. It was quite intense for sure. Yes, hi Jane. I remember adding you recently on the group, so welcome. And this is your first class too, right? So thank you. And yeah, I'll look forward to see more of the March 26 guys' names also now. And do drop me a message, Rahmat, on WhatsApp, and we'll guide you from there how to start. You've enrolled, right, Rahmat, with us? So you've enrolled, right? Yes. So please drop me a message on WhatsApp and let's have a quick review how to start. But because you're in March, so officially the March course will start somewhere in late September or October. So you still have 2-3 months to get ahead of the program, get ahead of the course, get ahead of the study plan. So beautiful time to join now. And yep, I'll just drop me a message on WhatsApp and I'll take it from there. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening. Bye bye.